Hi everyone, and a warm welcome to Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. This past month, we were invited over to the Islands of Tahiti by our good friends at Tahiti Tourisme so that we could learn exactly what the experience is like for visitors during the low season period. The Islands of Tahiti are arguably among the most stunningly beautiful in the world. Formed from the demise of 3 volcanoes, these islands have not only an incredible natural beauty, but they also have an ancient, rich and diverse cultural heritage which remains strong to this day. In this series, we seek to learn more about the traditions, beliefs, culture and heritage as we set out to discover the true essence of Tahiti when we meet the Tahitians. Episode 12, Heimata. Heimata Hall is passionate about food. And that's just as well, as Heimata is a Tahitian food tour guide with the strong belief that food is a leveller which transcends hierarchy and social constraints. It's a universal thing which connects us in ways which are simply not possible with any other activity. I met up with Heimata in the municipal market in Papeete, where, after a delicious lunch of poisson cru, we enjoyed a lively discussion about the local dishes in Tahiti, how food is perhaps the most universal element of culture, and we equally pondered the future of tourism in Tahiti and Moorea. Does tourism protect and preserve cultural heritage? Or in fact, does cultural heritage protect and preserve tourism? Enjoy. Yorana, Heimata, lovely to meet you, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk with us.
My pleasure.
Here we are in Papeete, the municipal market, and we wanted to speak to you, apart from anything else, about food, because everybody has told us that you are the man to talk about food. So the expectation levels are,
I know,
I'm going to be honest,
feeling the pressure.
Seriously high, seriously high. But you know what? While we're talking here now, we've just been talking about the risk of tourism and about the burden of tourism, and I think it's interesting. I think we should talk about this as well.
Yeah.
Tahiti at the moment doesn't, or does it, suffer from over tourism? And I'm just wondering how much do you feel is it a risk at the moment for Tahiti to go down a path of keeping on accepting more tourists?
I think this is a great question, and I think it's really the moment to talk about it right now, because I feel Tahiti as a country, we come to this crossroad today of we've struggled for a long time in tourism, but at the same time we haven't. I guess it depends how you look at it or who you ask, but do we go for mass tourism or do we go for green tourism or sustainable tourism? Sustainable tourism, I feel like that's the big topic of conversation today for future tourism. But at the same time, what is sustainable tourism today? Is it just a word we're using to market, or is it a responsible way of really developing tourism? And I think that's the big question right now. Is what does sustainability mean? Because a lot of times it's kind of like when the word organic came out. It meant something, and then it became a marketing tool. Yeah. So is it the same thing for this, or is there really a plan behind it with actual values and words that mean something, right?
Do you think that any destination says, you know what, we've thought about it, we've consulted with locals, and yeah, we're going to go for the mass tourism option. We're going to go mass tourism. Because I'm not sure that they do. And we know that mass tourism exists. So my question is mass tourism something which is planned, or is it an accident that just happens?
As they say, right? Cash is king at the end of the day. And I think it's planned. I think it's when you look, this is just my experience living through it now. I think this is the first time I think I've really try to get involved in the community, because I want to look further, especially for the young generation. I have a little boy now, he's 2 years old, so it's I'm thinking of his future, of what's tourism going to be like in 20 years or 30 years, or what's the effects that tourism is going to have that is going to affect their lives in 10, 20, 30 years, you know what I mean? So a lot of times I feel developers they is it irresponsible, or is just they don't think about it? I don't know. I'm not a developer. I'm not in their shoes, but I feel they don't really. It's more about you look of like, what's the benefit? How much am I going to make at the end of this project? So many units and all that, without taking into account. And I think what Morea is trying to do today is say, hey guys, can we sit down and talk as well about this is a good project, but do we need like 1,000 rooms? Can we scale it down to something a bit more at our level, where we can still control the content, we can still control the culture, we can still control and still continue to exist really as locals in our own island. Like if you go to Cabo San Lucas today, it was a funky fishing town where it was a lot of locals. You go back there now, it's a different story. You know, it's like, how do we avoid that?
Is a lot of this about capacity planning, I think. You know, a lot of destinations, they don't do a capacity planning study. I say this all the time. I've spoken to ministers for tourism, CEOs of tourist boards, and I ask them the same first question every time I meet them. And I always say, what is the capacity for your destination in any given year or day of the week? As in, do you know the number of people that you can safely welcome before that experience becomes negative for the visitors and worse, negatively impacts the local community? And usually said leader will tell me, we've got this many beds, or we've got this. I'm like, oh, I don't care how many beds are there. I want to know, what's the infrastructure built for? What's the road system built for? The number of taxis you've got, the number of restaurants you've got, the sewage, whatever. What's it built for? And at what point does that become negative for the locals and also the visitors? And the honest answer is they don't know. And I mean, it's really, no, and that's really frightening for me. Because if you don't know and you're still on this mentality of, all I know is we need to grow. So, you know, if I'm responsible for tourism, whatever the number is last year, it's got to be more. It's got to be plus X percent, because then I'm doing a good job, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, no, you know, not necessarily. Maybe doing a great job is ending up minus 10% off last year, maybe. Yeah. And I don't know, but, you know, do you think that, have these capacity studies, have they been done in Morea? You know, is that something that you're aspiring towards in Morea, do you think?
I think we want to inspire towards that. Yeah. I can't say if they have or not. Personally, I haven't. They do a lot of statistics here, though, for tourism. They do that here, a lot of it. So there are some numbers, and it sounds like there's a lot of room for growth still, because when you look at how many tourists we have per year, and probably what we could be at, but like you said, what is the true capacity? And we should grow. We should grow. And there is room for growth, but it's like, how do we grow? What's the end goal? Like, do we want to go super high end, super luxurious, mass tourism, or do we want to stay like a little bit of growth every year? So, because we get the point, you got to get the jobs too, right? That's usually what developers say. Well, it's going to create jobs, but you're going to create a monster as well. And it's like, how do we feed that monster? How do we, I guess, finding the balance? What is the balance between growing two at the same time? Is it possible? I don't know. Are there other countries that are doing it? Should we look towards other countries who have been able to do it if they have? You know what I mean?
It's interesting. I mean, I know one of the examples I'll give is the Seychelles. They basically set off from the beginning to say, you know, we want to go more down a 5-star exclusive kind of, but they were very much limiting their capacity, knowing that, you know, you're going to be effectively oversubscribed, as in more people want to go than can actually go, and that keeps the prices very high and everything else. And that's one way of looking at it, but it means that not necessarily everyone can access your destination. But they seem okay with that. But there's different examples. More and more now we're seeing people are going into the low seasons, because that's where you know you can safely grow. Because if you can manage what you've got in those peak 6 months, then effectively you know that if you're currently only 30% in the off-season, you know you can comfortably grow that off-season amount. So you don't necessarily need to grow the peak season stuff, but just grow the off-season. That's possibly going to have a minimal impact on everything. Maybe that will have a positive impact without the negative side.
Totally, I think I agree with you, because it's, you know, like in Tahiti, December to March or April is the low season. Yeah. And I've always wondered what made it that we decided it's a low season, right? Because it's like, oh, people say, oh, it rains a lot or it's humid. But people are willing to go to places that are freezing cold.
Yeah, of course.
You know, yeah, you get to ski, but it's still freaking cold.
I live in Manchester. We get tourists. I mean, they're not coming for the weather.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Yeah. So what? Because it might rain here, but it's still beautiful. It's still some great things to do.
It doesn't rain all the time.
It doesn't rain all the time. So how did we get stuck in this little thing, and how do we grow that?
I tell you, I've got my theory on that. I've been in the industry, like you, I've been in the industry for many years. And I always say this, and people have criticized me for it. But I always say, look, we were in an industry that knew nothing but constant growth. Year after year, every year, the tourism industry worldwide has just grown steadily all the time. And as a result, we got fat and lazy. You know, all I need to know is I just need to show up next year and it's going to be more than last year. I don't need to be particularly creative or clever. It's just going to be the same thing. So we didn't have to start thinking outside of the box. And we started to shovel people into the nice time of year as to when we thought they wanted to experience. We think that they want the sunshine. So actually the sunniest time is this. So when's the best time to come to Tahiti? Oh, it's this time. It's the sunny time, there's no rain, because I don't think that they want rain. And I think, and this is in all destinations, and I think now we're realizing that people, they're not necessarily bothered about the weather. I think the tourists are changing and evolving.
I totally agree.
And they want a more meaningful experience than just being sat on a beach in the sunshine.
Totally.
And for me, my dream, this sounds crazy now, my dream when we came here to Tahiti in the low season, in the rainy season, my dream was I wanted to see thick, dark skies rolling in over a beautiful green azure ocean. And I had that image in my head and I was like, oh my God, I want that so much. That to me that's an interesting photograph and video apart from anything. And the first 5 days we were here, of course, we didn't see any rain. And I'm talking to the cameras and I'm saying, well, here we are in the low season. It is the rainy season. We haven't seen any rain yet, but I was thinking, we really need rain for this to work, because otherwise I look like a fraud. People will say, he was there in the peak season. But we went out on one of the days on the boat in Moorea, and it happened. It was sunny in the morning, and the blackest, darkest clouds were on the horizon just moving towards us. And the sun was still shining on the green ocean. And you're just like, that's the most beautiful thing.
And the color.
Oh my God. And it pops against the dark.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, that is objectively
beautiful,
way more interesting than a blue sky and the blue sea.
Absolutely.
And that's what we wanted to showcase, and we did it. So wanted to talk a little bit more about food and culture.
Food and culture.
Because food is culture.
It is.
Which is your
Absolutely.
tagline.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Tell us what you do with regards to food and how you got into your food tours.
So first, like, passion. Gotta love food, and for me, I think a lot of times if you ask any chef or anybody in the food industry, it starts as a child, right? Either your mama's kitchen or grandma's kitchen or something. So same thing for me, as a little kid. I think one of the great things about growing up here in Tahiti is the family community. We have such, Polynesian families are big. You can have like a whole street of just uncles, aunties, cousins, neighborhood, things like that. So before growing up as kids, every Sunday we have our Sunday kind of like lunch, dinner, which what we call the ahima, where we put the pig in the ground and everybody gets together and everybody has their own little job, whether it's doing the taro, the breadfruit, all this stuff, the fish. And then at the end, it all comes together. We all sit down at a big table, we eat and we share this good time. And then obviously it starts with, then we play live music and we drink.
I love that. Do you know what? That's just making me think. We were somewhere on Sunday in Moorea, and we went past somewhere, and they said, "Oh no, that's all locals there." And it looked like a party, but it was like a gathering. That's probably what
that's
that
what
was.
it is. That's what it is, and growing. And those are some of the happiest moments of my memory as a child. So it really stuck to me. Food, and I always knew, I was like, man, I always wanted to be a chef. I think I watched a lot of books and TV and watching my mom cook and my grandma. But it took me a long time to get into the food business. It wasn't until I was like 37. But the whole time, every year, I'm like, this is the year, this is the year, this is the year.
Okay, next year.
Yeah. And 15 years or 20 years goes by, and then when I reach 37, I'm like, shit. Like, it's now or never.
Yeah.
You better do something, or you're gonna live in regrets. So I got in touch with a chef in Hawaii, I chose Hawaii versus France because everybody here was like, you gotta go to France, because that's the best cuisine and stuff. And for me, I chose Hawaii because of the cultural similarities and also the products, the same products. So I felt like my level of gastronomy won't be as high as if I went to France, but my level of understanding of the products and how to use the products, on how they use it there, to here I would grow more.
Yeah, it would translate easier, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't looking to do necessarily gastronomy food. I was more looking to like how do I influence our cultural food and make it in a modern way, you know, and like elevate the level in that sense. My initial thing was to come back and do a cafe or a restaurant. That was my childhood dream. And then just through a conversation with a friend that had a platform worldwide for bookings.
Right.
And I had thought about food tours, but I was like, what's the story I'm gonna tell?
Yeah, what's the angle?
What's the angle? Yeah. You know, because like I said, we always think gastronomy, we always think fancy. Tourists only want luxurious, nice stuff. And I started like, man, how about the everyday stuff? And I was like, I don't know if this local street food is gonna be good enough for our travelers, right? And then every friend I try to talk to, they're like, bro, you're not gonna give them a noodle sandwich, like you're crazy. And then I was like, well, the fact that you say I'm crazy, I think I'm onto something. Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And but it was important for me to, when travelers came, don't get stuck in the mainstream stuff. They're gonna do that anyways. What can I do to take them off the beaten path, off the mainstream, and what can I offer them as an experience that's gonna be different? Where when they're done, they're gonna be like, man, I walked away with something. I experienced culture today through food, and it's been the most amazing thing. I think I would have never thought in a million years this is what I've been doing, but I love using the vehicle of food to go through culture.
Yep.
And I think every destination should be about the culture of the place, and this is kind of like my way of telling our story through this food tour.
So how long have you been doing the tours now?
About 2 years now. I started literally 3 months before COVID hit, so it was a little rough start.
That's challenging.
Tumbled out the blocks, but ever since we reopened the borders, I'm overwhelmed of how the response of people with the food tours and wanting to experience the local street food of French Polynesia.
Yeah. It's a real experience, and I love the fact that it's, you know, like you were sort of saying, it is kind of niche. It's kind of niche, but I would imagine it's very much a growing niche. But also, I figured the same on Low Season Traveller, and I say it all the time actually when we're talking about social media and everything else. I always say, look, as soon as you venture into just generally travel, competition is everywhere. I mean, you're going to get swallowed up. If you stay true to Low Season, Jed, you're the only one. So you stay true to that. Same with yourself. Once you sort of go sort of general or the high-end stuff, you know, it gets swallowed up. There's so much other stuff out there. But once you go on that sort of niche, yeah, you're golden.
It's almost like food has no season. I mean, it has season as far as the products, but as far as eating, it's high season all day, every day.
and that's what I love about it. You know, when we talk about Low Season, which obviously we're in Low Season now, you know, we always say the food is still there, the music is still there, the stories are still there, the songs are still there, the people are still there. You don't need to go on those packed 6 months to get all of that kind of fun stuff.
No, for sure. And food, you know, like we're saying, brings people together.
It does.
That's the best part about it. We're sharing.
It's breaking of bread, isn't it?
Breaking of bread.
That's exactly
it's like going back to the fundamentals, you know, back to the basics, back to, like I was saying, we like disarming.
It does disarm you. I mean, it's the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking that you're some kind of a genius, because no, but it is. It is. When you have a meal with somebody, it's this, look, to connect with somebody, it's about having a shared experience. And food is the ultimate shared experience because you get to enjoy it. It's a time when you are relaxed, because we always feel a little bit more relaxed when we're enjoying good food. And yeah, I can absolutely. I mean, you can't do that over Zoom, can you? You know,
well, there's no separation. There's no titles. It's not like it's on the food tour. We'd be sitting on the table. I have a plumber, a nurse, CEO of a blue chip company with a high-end lawyer and a doctor, and it's like it doesn't matter. We're all the same, and we're all sharing our story. And I love to start conversation. It is like, how did you guys meet as a couple? What do you do? And this and it you just see these walls come down, and next thing you know, they're talking, they're laughing. Next thing you know, like, hey, what are you guys doing tonight for dinner? Let's meet up for dinner and things like that. And we need more of this in today's world. You know, I feel like we put up so many walls now. It's food brings the walls down, and we talk, we share. That's the best part.
I love that. That's, I think, a great point to end on, because I know that we're pushed for time. Next time I come over here in the low season, book me in, because I haven't had the chance to do the tour, because you've been on holiday in New Zealand having a great time, I'm sure. But next time I definitely want to do the tour. It would be absolutely wonderful, I know.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you guys for this opportunity. It's been great sharing and talking.
Thanks for being to you.
Yeah.
Maruru.
Maruru.